Hello, I'm Dr. Charlie Kenny, founder and president of the Right Brain People. I'm a consumer psychologist and a brand strategist. We focus on how people make decisions in the marketplace. In short, why do they buy? And in order to understand why people buy, we need to look at neuroscience, the principles by which the brain and the mind operate and work. Looking at these neuroscience principles can give us new insights, radical new insights into what motivates people and why they buy. When you look at the brain, you see that there are two hemispheres. We all have a right brain and a left brain. We're fond of saying at the Right Brain People that we all have two brains. And in a sense we do, because the two brains do different things and they operate differently. We'll see more about that in a moment. For now, though, the two brains interact all the time. And what's missing in market research, as it is typically done in Fortune 500 companies, is an understanding of the difference between the two and how that right hemisphere or that right brain really works and why it's important for marketing. Over the years, we've had a wonderful opportunity to work with over 600 great companies and brands in all sorts of different business sectors. So we ask, with that experience as a background, what is a brand? And as we look around the business literature and MBA programs in the country, we don't find an adequate definition of brand. So when I wrote my book, The Right Brain Way, we developed our own definition based on our understanding. And I'd like to share that with you. Here it is. A brand is created as people make an emotional connection that changes the literal product or service into an implicit promise that drives their perceptions, their behavior, how they feel, their decisions, and their expectations from that brand. Now, the word expectations implies that there's a sort of process going on here that hasn't been spelled out very well. That process is that from what you do with your brand, people in the marketplace draw inferences and conclusions about what you're promising them. Maybe you don't make the promise, and in most cases, most companies don't make the promise explicitly. But that doesn't mean that your customers are not seeing that there is a promise being made, at least implicitly, and they have expectations that are based on the promise. So, if a brand then is a promise, all the little things that you do are really more important than the big things that you say. And the implications for that statement, that simple statement, are really powerful. They lead us to the conclusion that brand is the most powerful single business tool that you have available to you today. The irony is, though, that on the other hand, it's not very well understood. And now herein lies the value of the right brain approach. Because when we look at neuroscience, when we look at how the brain and therefore the mind works, we see that the left brain is the seat of logic, analytical reasoning, problem solving. When you're sitting at your computer doing Excel sheets and projecting financial data over the next 5 years, that's primarily a left brain function. On the right-hand side of the brain, the right hemisphere, what we see is that the right brain is the seat of emotion and intuition, music, and long-term memory. Long-term memory because long-term memory is visually based and the right brain is visually oriented. Now, at all times, these two hemispheres, the right brain and the left brain, are interacting. They're interacting constantly through what we call the corpus callosum, 7 billion nerve fibers that connect the two brains over the top of the cortex. Even as I'm talking, there's millions of messages going back inside my brain as I'm looking for things to say to you and to share with you. Now, understanding these facts about how the brain works leads us to a very important realization that if we are going to understand why people buy, that's really a motivational question. And motivation is about emotion. But emotion is really stored in the right brain. It's stored when a person has an emotional experience, and the energy attached to that experience stamps the picture, actually the whole experience, into the mind, into the brain, and it stays there, in many cases indefinitely. So we found that what you have to do is interview people about what happened to them in dealing with the brand and all aspects of it, the product or the service and their experience with it, and so forth. And you can dig that out with the in-depth right brain interviewing that we have developed. How does right brain interviewing work? It's based on 3 fundamental techniques: visualization, relaxation, and repetition. In order to get people to visualize experiences they've had long ago, their eyes have to be closed. We have to get them to relax so they go into their own world and they literally relive those experiences. We repeat our questioning and our probing again and again in different ways to get at the basic information and the insights that we're looking for. So people are actually reliving their experiences. When we did our landmark project that helped to save the Corvette brand for General Motors, we asked our respondents to go back in your mind's eye now to the earliest time that stands out for you, when you're beginning to realize that there's a car called a Corvette. Well, bingo! The women and the men, yes, there are women Corvette owners, the women and the men went back to their pre-adolescence, to 11 and 12 or 13, and they saw this experience unfolding before them that they're actually part of, where they see maybe it's the former quarterback of the high school football team comes back to the campus, the high school campus, after a year or two of being gone and in the service, and now he's home and he has a job and he has enough money to buy a Corvette, and all the girls are gathering around him. And this young boy says to himself, boy, someday I'm going to have a car like that. So then when he's 46 and he's struggling a little bit, maybe wondering what's going on in his life, he perhaps is feeling a little bit of that energy draining, all of a sudden he finds himself down in the Chevrolet dealership. So this is how we get at this type of critical information that you have to know about that triggers the decision to buy. Conducting right brain interviews over the years has led us to discover and identify and classify what we call the psychological dynamics that motivate people. Those dynamics consist of 3 different types of things. First, we have the emotional needs that motivate people. Then we have the emotional barriers that block them from doing what you, the brand manager, want the customer or the consumer to do. And third, we have the rationalizations that people use to explain their own behavior to themselves and to others. And taken together, these 3 different types of things are what determines the decision to buy. And understanding them in depth allows you to develop a much more powerful brand and communication strategy than would otherwise be the case. When sharing the results from a project with our clients for the first time, we tell them that they'll get 3 different things from the results, 3 kinds of results that they'll see and hear. First are things that they already know. Second are things that are real surprises to them. We don't know what those will be, but we know that there will be surprises. And third, we have that category that we call tacit knowledge, where for the first time, perhaps a brand manager's intuition about his brand, about his customers, and how they relate to the brand and connect to it is articulated, and words are used to spell all that out. And without that tacit knowledge being articulated, one manager, no matter how intuitive he might or she might be about customer motivation, can't really use that because all these important decisions are made in groups today. And that needs to be spelled out. And when it is, an entirely new perspective on the brand can be developed. So what do clients get from Right Brain Research? They get strategies that can help them launch a new brand, relaunch an existing brand that has weakened and slipped, develop a new strategy for a brand that is just not going anywhere, or perhaps the competitive situation has changed. We work with clients in all these different types of situations. The bottom line result: increased brand loyalty, increased revenue, increased profitability, and a much stronger and much more powerful brand. How does this happen? It happens because of the application of neuroscience principles, a radical new discovery for how to manage and nourish and develop and build the most powerful brands in the world. Thank you very much.